Hey everyone, welcome. Thanks for joining us on Designing Adobe XD. I'm Alex Poterek, Senior Designer on XD, filling in for Talon this week. So thanks for being here.
And I'm Hilary Nemer, also Senior Designer on the XD team. Work with Alex.
Yeah, so this is Hilary's first time on the show.
Yes.
Super exciting. You're not that new anymore on the team.
It's been about 2 months. I think this is my 2-month mark this week.
You're seasoned now.
Yeah.
Like, you're ready. This is like now like the next level. It's live streaming Adobe XD things. But thanks for joining. Everyone's kind of populating in right now. Kind of give them a second to kind of settle in, and we can kind of go over an agenda and talk about what we're going to do. One of my favorite things to do with the audience is that just have them tell us where they're from, because we got somebody from Canada. I'm always surprised, just like it's
awesome.
Like really around the world.
That's pretty cool.
So Jason, Alejandra, Rick, welcome. Thanks for joining us. If this is your first time tuning in, thanks for joining us. But if you don't know what XD is, don't worry. We're going to kind of cover that a little bit. Just a real quick intro. I'm sure a lot of you actually know what we're going to be doing or what XD is, but if you don't, I just want to give you a quick rundown. We're going to do that. We're going to show a little bit of work that people have been doing in the online community. So if you're on Twitter, you can always hashtag Made with Adobe XD, and we'll try to put it on this show and kind of show what people are doing. There's always some really cool stuff. But yeah,
Cool.
Thanks for being here, Hilary.
Thanks.
This is going to be a good one. This is episode 14, I think. So that's really exciting. This is a weekly thing, so always tune in and join us. So hey from Portland, Berlin, Mexico, Holland, Southern California, a little closer to home for us. Awesome. So cool. We can get started a little bit.
Sounds good.
All right, I'm gonna do a little, like I said, a little rundown on Adobe XD and kind of what it is for all of you guys that might not be aware. And feel free to jump in and be like, just add things that
Cool.
that I might get to do. Since you kind of been getting up to speed with XD yourself, you probably have a little bit more context, and like sometimes I get like a little ahead of myself and forget the basic things that I take for granted. But yeah, so this is XD. It's as the splash screen, I guess, kind of says, design, prototype, and share. You have your templates up here, your recent files all along here. And if you want to get started really quick, just to start to make an iPhone app, you can just easily take a template, click on it, and you're good to go. I think kind of the magic of XD is just getting people in and working as quickly as possible. We want to get you to design things, iterate really quick, share it out. So I'll kind of show you what that's all about. I can start to create this screen over here, maybe add a little header icon happening, or icon, header, layer, whatever we call it. And then let's maybe throw a footer in there. And then let's do some magic with XD where I'm gonna create like a little thumbnail list happening and add some text, and I don't really feel like thinking about what that text is right now. So I'm not gonna. Then I'm gonna select these things. I'm gonna hit repeat grid. It's that magical button over here, or Command R. And then I'm just gonna quickly kind of create a list going right here. Real simple, not the prettiest, but that's not the point for right now. Now I'm gonna duplicate that, and maybe we look at something that's a little bit more of a grid view of that same thing. So same thing, I'm gonna take that object, hit Command R, I'm gonna duplicate it, and then kind of create this grid in some regards. Easy, simple. And that's the design portion, obviously, of XD. But if we want to get into like, let's add like a little button to toggle the views, we can start to prototype right in XD. So when you switch to prototype, you'll get this little animation. You can ignore that if you already know what's going on. But you'll see the difference between this mode and this mode is this is very dedicated to setting things up and wiring. So I'll just drag this little thing over here, and that's pretty much it. You're good to go at that point. Like, you're cooking now. You hit this little play button up here, and you kind of see it happen. So really quick, you get your designs in, you start prototyping it, and then the last thing you're probably going to want to do is share this out. So you can publish a prototype. If you're a little bit further along and you want to send this to a developer, you can actually publish the design specs. So that's going to do all the measuring and everything for you. So you don't have to redline, which I think is my least favorite thing in the world. But yeah, so if you hit publish, you can just create a prototype. That'll take a second, hopefully. It's trickier. And yeah, send this out. And now I have my prototype. And it'll work just like it did in the app. You can leave comments, send this link to anybody else. You can password protect if you need to, all that kind of fun stuff. But that's essentially the basics of XD. Did I miss anything? I feel like I did. I feel like, there's a lot, but
I mean, I think a couple of the things that are pretty standard, the layers panel is really nice. It's contextual, so you're not going to see all the layers for every artboard at once. So you're really just dealing with what you see, what you're selected, or what is selected at the time.
For example, when I'm on this artboard and I have this selected, all I'll see is this artboard's stuff, and then over here it'll just switch to the next artboard. So I'm not kind of like overwhelmed with like 1,000 layers like you might be in other programs.
But other than that, I feel like most users who are used to other Adobe products are going to come in feeling really comfortable with all the tools.
Cool. Good call. Layers panel always slips my mind. But it's a good one for sure. Related to that is the assets panel, and we'll get into that a little bit later, I think. So people in the chat, feel free to ask any questions or make comments, and we're happy to answer it. What's kind of cool for us is that we're designers building a design tool. So if you want to know about our thought process or anything like that, hopefully we'll show a little bit of this and that as we go along. But if you have specific questions, go ahead and ask them. So to that point, one of the cool things about this is, like I said, we get to build XD and XD. So you get this sort of really Inception-y kind of like, okay, now I have this Chrome inside of this Chrome. And so we actually do standardize, and we actually use the same templates, or at least we try to. And then we kind of build out these flows. So if it's, I don't know what's a good example of this, but like if you want to add another tool, you can talk about like what that is, just add it in there. And then a lot of times it's pretty low fidelity to start, but then we just wire up to the next thing, and then we start to look at like how these things can play together. And we actually share these things out all the time, get feedback on it when we're working with the engineers, when we're working with developers or product managers, I should say. But it's a lot of fun. We have obviously our Windows or Mac, and then Windows as well, so UWP app. And then we also have to support things like the sharing that I just showed, and we have to have designs for that. Actually,
we've got a good question. Is there a way to report bugs in Adobe XD?
That is a good question.
I don't know the answer.
I think somebody posted the Adobe XD user voice. You can definitely go there and make comments there and add bugs or feature requests that you want. It's actually a really good resource if you're an active user of XD, so you can really be a part of like helping us build XD. Cool. So it's really community driven. And like I'm about to show you, we're really active on Twitter. Like the entire team is incredibly active. If you post right now on Twitter and hashtag Adobe XD, you'll get a comment within like 5 minutes probably. So feel free to like report bugs there even, or just share your work or talk about what you like and don't like. Do you designers read? Oh yeah, yes. I mean, we read them all, and you'd be surprised how many files I have of just like really basic wireframes and just user flows in XD about those feature requests. They sometimes get hidden in the backlog, like even if they're designed out, like we don't have the resources to build them, or we're prioritizing other things. But there's a lot of features already designed out that we just haven't gotten to yet.
Yeah.
What's a pasteboard? So in XD, this entire thing is called a canvas, but anything outside of an artboard is technically pasteboard. So I think that's reflected in the layers panel. So if I kind of create this rectangle that just lives right there, it's technically in the pasteboard. I don't know if you guys can see that. So anything that's not on a canvas, yeah, it's the gray area essentially, as someone commented in there, but good question. We always have like different lingo, and sometimes you kind of like forget like what people call it, because it's usually the canvas for a lot of people. So good question though. What we're looking at right here is actually the whole sort of like template that we use to present to each other. So our title slides, all our different screen types, and then just kind of in between states if we want to make comments about things. And then this is actually about like our objectives. So it's like, oh, like what are we trying to do? Like who do we need feedback from, and like what kind of feedback do we want? It's a really kind of important part about this.
Kind of setting up expectations for a meeting.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than like showing work and getting feedback that you weren't really soliciting. You're like, yeah, like I'm not ready for that feedback. So yeah, this is kind of in like a little look into how we do things in our process, and to the point with like the user voice feature requests, we actively do look at them and make them. We release monthly builds of XD for the public, and they have tons of new features every month. So we're constantly growing. We're constantly designing these things and getting them built through the engineers. I think that's a good segue to start chatting about some of the new features.
Yeah, sure.
So if you actually are familiar with XD and you kind of are just like here to check things out, we can talk about like what kind of new features that we're actually adding in XD. I'll go through these pretty quick because I want to have time for. Towards the end, we're going to just talk about some like tips and tricks that we wish we knew about XD when we were like first learning it, and kind of just talk about our strategy with that. But the first pretty big feature is that we now support Zeppelin, ProtoPie, and Avocode on Windows. So I know a lot of people were a little bummed about not having that sort of support, but we got there, and now you can use it today. And I'll actually show a little GIF of somebody on Twitter using that feature. Awesome. And kind of how they're doing it. The big one is stroke enhancement. So I'm just going to go over here to the pasteboard actually and show this off. So
this is a really cool way to use it.
So if we, this is so zoomed out, but so if I have this circle, I can now adjust the stroke, which you could do before. That's not new. But what is new is adding the new dashed and gap features. So you might be familiar with this if you use Illustrator, but now you can actually start to make dotted lines a lot quicker and easier. I think you can make these circles, yeah. By just changing the gap type. Actually, I'm gonna adjust these so they're perfect circles, and then adjust the gap. And then you can quickly just start to make these things that are like really cool. And people are doing like really creative things with these right now, whether it's like loading spinners and like just really kind of playing with how the gaps work.
I saw a cool example of circle graphs with this one. Yeah, it's a really cool, fast way to make circle graphs.
That's a good point. I wonder how quickly I can make a circle graph. I'm gonna really test the limits of my using this feature.
Yeah.
I made this thing so big that the numbers aren't reacting
Huge.
as quickly as I want them to be, but bear with me. It's getting there. Pretty close. I just want, yeah, I'm gonna go with that. Okay, so now I can actually, let's see, duplicate this. I'm gonna do 0, 0, and then I'm gonna make this a quick, like this kind of thing, and then what I'm gonna do to that first one is I'm actually gonna use a mask. So I'm gonna mask part of it, if that makes sense. So I have this selected, and I'm gonna say object mask with shape. That's the opposite that I wanted to happen, but that's okay. It should be a quick fix. I'm gonna take this point and actually do this, and that should do what I want. Cool. So now I'm starting to get like a like sort of an infographic. Like this is X percentage of data, and I could actually just maybe duplicate this real quick. Rotate it maybe like this much, and get it here. Actually, I'm gonna do a little bit more of a angle, and then change the color real quick. And let's make it like a, what color do you think?
Green.
Green. Let's do like a lime.
Yeah.
So then you start having this quick like percentages and things like that you can really build. This reminds me of the Xbox like Red Ring of Death. You guys remember that? I'm getting a little like stressed out looking at that. So cool. I think next up I wanted to kind of go through some really cool Twitter work that's been doing. So again, like post your hashtags. I think there's a couple questions. Horizontal scrolling, unfortunately we don't support that yet. We have vertical scrolling, but it's something that we're like looking at. And hello from Minnesota. And hi Colby, welcome. And let's take a look at some stuff. So this is just a really basic flow where you have a loading screen, a login page, and all of this. What I will show a little bit later is actually how to really jump start into this and make it really quick using some of our wireframe stuff. And it wouldn't be this high fidelity to start, but you can kind of take it from there, and it's actually pretty easy and interesting to do. This is somebody using the stroke feature I was just talking about, in a probably better way than I was. Zoom in, maybe?
Probably just started with a smaller circle.
Yeah,
so
I think that was my downfall. I was using some crazy values. We were testing the limits. But actually, this is cool because this is somebody doing the same thing, but they actually moved this into ProtoPie on Windows, and actually started to add some animation to it and get it going really quick. Just some other really cool. I always love to see how people present their work. So like this is just the UX frame, right? And then this is kind of just like a added thing to make it look really cool.
Yeah, it's super cool. Nice detail.
Yeah, presenting your work is like half the challenge, right? Another UWP app. So somebody made a native Twitter app. This is a little meta right now, but made a Twitter app for UWP in dark and white. Really easy to do that, especially if you're using the assets panel. You can make some cool things like that. Basic calculator thing. So we're seeing a range. We're seeing a range of things you can make with this. I just like the type design on this.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Just a really thoughtful design layout.
Good color palette too.
This one, really basic, but really kind of like bold and exciting. Love this kind of work. And then I'm gonna do another little drop for our creative resident.
Cool.
This is Andrea. Go check out her stuff. She's doing some really cool things with XD. She's posting every day some like Internet of Things app design that she's building in XD, and they're all really cool. GIFs I can't click on, but
yeah, that's really awesome.
Pause. But yeah, they just look really nice. They're clean. They're sleek, and again, the whole presentation of it is just like really sells it.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And she posts videos and does reviews, and she has a couple of Medium articles out recently. Yeah, I would say just go check them out. They're really cool. All right. I only got through stroke enhancements. There's so many other features that I haven't gotten to yet.
Assets.
Yeah, let's take a look at like some other work, a little bit more high fidelity work that I can go into the assets panel and like I can add this to make it a symbol. So what the assets panel is a collection of my colors, my character styles, like my fonts and stuff, and symbols. So what I can do is I can add this to the assets panel, and you can see it kind of pop up right there. But now I can actually go in and rename it, which is like huge. Like it's something that kind of a game changer for it, because like this isn't the most helpful name, but now we can actually change it. So much needed feature, which is awesome.
I think another really cool example is so if you like click on the header, like one of the header titles, and make that a text style, you can go in and name like header 1 or whatever you want to do, which I think is really helpful.
Let's see. Yeah, so you can go in and just kind of name it like paragraph 1 or header 1 and paragraph 2 subheader.
So you kind of know when you're supposed to use them now. And
it's great for handoff too.
Yeah.
When you're working with other
for
designers.
design specs and stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One really cool one that it's one of those like, why haven't we had this kind of thing, is if I take this paragraph, I'm just going to do it off to the side on the pasteboard now. I can kind of like duplicate this and have these paragraphs there, but now we can just manually kind of adjust the paragraph size, which is really cool. It's more like those power user things, like like a lot of people would be interested in like InDesign for that, but we're slowly starting to like catch up and like have those really power user type features. So Mark's asking a question about future plans to incorporate conditional logic. Absolutely, we're planning on it. It's not there yet, but it's definitely something we're looking at, because like you can do really cool things with conditional logic. So stay tuned. Cool. I think that kind of covers most like the big major ones in the release. There's a couple other ones, like there's password masking and image, when you paste an image to create a mask out of it automatically, which is pretty cool. And then commenting and design specs, which if you're into Avocode or Zeppelin and stuff like that, we have our own that's very similar that you can publish right out of here. And now you can add commenting for the engineers and whoever you're working with.
Got some new localization for Chinese.
Yes,
it's nice.
Supporting multiple languages and doing all of that, which is pretty big. But yeah, I think that kind of covers our new stuff. I think what I wanted to chat about is, since you are pretty new to XD, just what are some of your like biggest moments where you're like, okay, I wish I knew this before, but now that I know it, it's great?
I think the overall theme for me is how much time XD saves for me. There's just, I mean, everyone knows as we demoed in the repeat grid, I mean, I can't think about how many times we create these reusable like media tiles with text attached to it. But one of the more mind-blowing things for me was how easy it is to populate those repeat grids and change things out. So like, for example, selecting a bunch of images that you can then just drop in there, it'll populate throughout. Taking a text file and dropping it in. That stuff was pretty powerful to me. It really shows how XD tries to take away a lot of the repetitive work that we do as designers, and just create a really fast tool for you to use.
I wish I had a folder full of images ready so I can just drop these in. But yeah, if you just multi-select a bunch of images and drop it into this this repeat grid, it'll just populate them all. So they're individual different images, just really quick.
Yeah.
But that's a great one.
That's one of my favorites. I was trying to think what else. Editing colors in the asset panel. How many times we want to play around with colors and change things up, even going from wireframe to high fidelity really quickly. Being able to select a color and update it throughout all of the canvas.
That's a great one. So let's actually try that one out real quick.
Yeah.
So I think this one is, we have this new feature which is like highlight on canvas. So it's going to show me where all these colors are on canvas. But now I can just right click and go edit. And now I can really quickly just kind of see what a different version of that color is going to look like across all of them.
And that's just such a powerful way to see what it would look like in high fidelity really quickly.
And you can see it's happening like just all over the canvas, and it's just really easy, and yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's a great one. The assets panel is really powerful.
Yeah.
I think that is probably the biggest one where people like start using XD and they're probably like it's fine, everything's great, it's really easy to use, but yeah, like once you actually start to use this button down here, which I think a lot of people miss, or like at least they don't start to use. Once you start using the symbols and the colors, like you're saying, like it's kind of a game changer in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's like I can't go back now.
I think another good one is the grids. So if you select another kind of one of those things where sometimes you don't see these options very well, is when you actually select an artboard, you do get these options like scrolling, another one that sometimes people miss. But also you can start to create grids, whether it's a layout grid, so I can create this really easy structure to kind of follow along with, and sort of adjust on the fly however I need it to. But I can also make it a square, like your classic just square pixel, and however big or small I want that too. So when you're trying to do those pixel perfect things, like, these are super helpful.
We've got a note here saying the dynamic layers panel is awesome, and we touched on this a little earlier, but I totally agree. I think that's one of the other beauties of XD is how contextual it is. Whatever I'm working on, it see exactly what I would need for that tool, and nothing else. And same with the layers panel. It saves a lot of like moving around the artboard, moving things around, trying to find what you're looking for.
Definitely does.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a great point. I'm glad that people are noticing because it's a really cool thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the last one is that I really want to touch on is moving things between other things in the Adobe suite. So if you look at Photoshop, for instance, I can create this this really quick little pin that I just created, and I'm just going to kind of I'm going to merge them together, and then I'm going to just drag them into my CC libraries. And now when I go to XD, I can go to File, where'd it go? Open CC libraries, and it just populates right there. So we can drop it, and it's a little janky looking, like this thing is little, and of course I merged them before I wanted to. I might want to like drop the opacity of this a little bit, and I'm gonna actually redo this a little bit. Oh, I think it might have already updated. Oh, I dragged it off the canvas. Why can't I add it? Oh, there it is. That's why. Okay. So I'm actually gonna, real quick, just change the color of this. Just do a little hue saturation because I want it to be a little bit more blue, like my other file. Then I'm gonna hit save, and then you can see it's thinking for a second, and then it's just gonna update it anywhere else that we're using it. So it's a really cool way to kind of jump between your different products. So if you're using Illustrator or Photoshop, awesome way to just keep going with whatever you're working on. XD can consume Photoshop files, so if you ever need to, if you've started something in Photoshop and you need to move into XD, it's a pretty painless process.
Yeah, I mean, as designers, we move around between tools all the time. A lot of tools are experts in different things, and so for Adobe, this is such a huge one.
And I think that about does it for us today. We're hitting time. Thanks for joining today.
Thanks for having me.
I'm pretty sure you'll be back, whether as a guest or hosting it. I see the future.
Cool.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for being here. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. And see you next week, potentially.
Cool.